How's it going, hockey fans? Hope you're all doing well today. So I'm just gonna go straight to the point. What the hell are the Pittsburgh Penguins doing right now? I really just don't get the moves Jim Rutherford is making. Just a lot of moves ever since the past season, and they just don't make much sense to me. I mean, you look, last summer with the Buffalo Sabres, they traded back for Connor Sherry, their former player. He's a solid third line guy, but he doesn't really do that much to produce. More of a guy you would add to a roster that's already really built and ready to compete for a Stanley Cup. Later on, right before the trade deadline, they go for Jason Zucker of the Wild. They trade a lot for this guy, and this guy kind of a borderline second, line wing. And again, a kind of guy you'd want, on your roster if you're contending. Probably more third line if you are a contending team, which the Pittsburgh Penguins definitely are not. Of course, when the playoffs start, they're just in the prelim round. They're not even in the first round, and they lose to the 24th seeded Montreal Canadiens in a 4-game, 3-1 series, which got a lot of fans surprised. It honestly surprised me, but it really showed that they don't have the prolific scoring that they've had in the past, because they have their top stars in Crosby and Malkin, but their depth is not as good as it used to be, and these players are getting older, so they're not in that phase where they're still trying to contend, at least with the roster as it is right now, not with just a few middling additions. And then this summer, they go for Kasperi Kapanen of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they trade him for a 15th overall pick this upcoming draft. Of course, there's a couple of the pieces thrown both sides, but really it was basically Kapanen straight up for that 15th overall pick with a little bit of cap relief for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So that's a crazy trade for me. This guy, he's really solid. He's what I would say to be a third line winger on a competing team, and then probably more second line for maybe not so much a competing team, which he might even place in with the Pittsburgh Penguins, because they don't really have that much depth, especially on wings. So I think that definitely could be a possibility. And it just doesn't make sense to me, because if you really want to just finalize these years with Crosby and Malkin, of course, they're getting older. Crosby's 33, Malkin's 34, but they're still playing at a high level. If you want to really make the most of these final years before they become too old to play at a high level, getting some middling players, to replace some of the already not so good, offensive depth that they have isn't going to make much of a change. These are moves that are made by contending teams, and the Pittsburgh Penguins are not a contending team right now. If they really want to do that, if they really want to sell out their future and get rid of a lot of their prospects and picks, you go for top talent. You go for top talent wingers for win now mode if you want to make the most out of Crosby and Malkin in their final years of their, they're producing, years before, of course, they end up falling out. So these moves just don't make sense to me. You're not going to become a contender when adding a Kapanen and a Sherry and a Zucker. You're going to become a contender if you go for, higher skilled forwards. Of course, there's been some higher skilled forwards, in trade rumors, players like Besser, players like Gaudreau. And if Pittsburgh really wanted to push, for some more contending, for some more contention in general in these final years with Malkin and Crosby, they got to go for that top talent, and that's not what they're doing. They're kind of just wasting their future because they're getting rid of these picks, pretty valuable picks too. 15th overall in this draft is very valuable for players who aren't going to contribute too much. They're really not much of a part of their future. I mean, Zucker, he's already in his late 20s. Kapanen is 24, but again, just kind of a solid, young winger who's basically reached his prime right now. I mean, people were excited about how he was going to progress a few years ago when he was already producing at a pretty decent level in the NHL, hoping in his prime he'd be producing more. And that just hasn't happened. That's just the player he is. He's kind of a half a point guy. And there's potential for much more in a 15th overall pick. But yeah, really just trade away kind of the future, the picks, and not get some immediate talent to put them in contention. It makes no sense to me, because with these moves, they're not going to be Stanley Cup contenders, and they're just kind of getting rid of their future. Making, in a few years, it's going to be really tough to be a Penguins fan. It's going to be a really tough rebuild because they're not building their future prospect pool through prospects and these picks. And yeah, getting rid of the future plus not making a contending team. And that just makes no sense to me. So I don't know what Jim Rutherford is doing. I don't know what his plan is. If you're a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, you gotta hope Jim Rutherford goes for some bigger moves this offseason to make this team contenders, at least for the near future, just to take advantage of Crosby and Malkin's final producing years. So those are my thoughts. I don't really get the Kapanen trade for the Penguins, but it's a move they made, and Pittsburgh Penguins fans, you gotta hope they're making some bigger moves to keep you guys into contention for the next few seasons. Those are my thoughts on what's going on. I'm pretty confused. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Try to explain to me what the Pittsburgh Penguins are doing, because I don't really get it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.